What if the scariest thing in a horror movie wasn't a demon, a monster, or a killer? What if it was just a boy who wanted a girl to love him back? Obsession just turned that into one of the most disturbing horror concepts of the year. What is up, Movizo? Today we're talking about Obsession, a psychological horror film that somehow feels way too real to shake off. And honestly, this one stayed in my head longer than most horror movies do. Let's get into why. The film's central idea is deceptively simple. Bear can't confess his feelings to Nikki. After multiple failed attempts, he finds a wish-granting willow stick at a crystal shop. The cashier literally warns him not to use it. He uses it anyway, and in one moment of frustration, he wishes for Nikki to love him more than anything. That's it, no ritual, no demon, no ancient curse, just one emotionally immature decision that slowly destroys two people. And that's exactly what makes Obsession so uncomfortable. What director Curry Barker understands brilliantly is that the real horror here isn't supernatural evil, it's emotional desperation. Bear doesn't summon a monster, he just wants too much too fast from someone who never chose to give it. That reframing changes the entire movie, because suddenly the horror stops feeling fictional, it starts feeling recognizable. Inde Navarrette as Nikki is easily the film's secret weapon. Her performance becomes terrifying in the smallest ways possible. The way she switches between normal behavior and complete psychological unraveling feels almost robotic. And that's the point. The movie slowly turns affection into something mechanical. There's one scene where Nikki is just staring at Bear with this unnatural devotion. Nothing violent is happening, but it's genuinely one of the creepiest moments in the entire film, because you realize this isn't possession, this is personality erosion. And the scarier Nikki becomes, the more the film forces you to question Bear himself. At first, the movie frames him like the victim. He's awkward, lonely, emotionally closed off, the kind of character audiences naturally sympathize with. But once the wish starts changing Nikki, that sympathy becomes harder and harder to hold on to, because her autonomy disappears almost instantly. She stops feeling like a real person, and slowly becomes the fantasy version of herself that Bear thought he wanted. The film deliberately keeps both characters somewhat emotionally distant. We barely know much about their pasts, families, or deeper lives outside this situation, and weirdly, that starts becoming its own form of horror, because the relationship stops feeling specific to them. It starts feeling like a distorted reflection of modern dating culture itself, wanting instant emotional validation, wanting obsession mistaken for love, wanting connection without truly understanding the other person. Now, to be fair, that restraint does slightly hurt the film emotionally in the first act. There are moments where I wanted a little more time with Bear before the wish happens, just to fully feel the tragedy of what he's about to destroy. But once the film crosses that point of no return, it locks in completely, and that turning point is incredible. The moment Bear snaps the willow stick is filmed with such ordinary frustration that it somehow becomes horrifying. No dramatic music, no thunder, no cinematic spectacle, just a guy in a parking lot making the worst decision of his life. That's the film's thesis in one image, not evil, not hatred, just uncontrolled desire turning somebody into a fantasy. And the disturbing part is, Bear doesn't fully understand what he's done until Nikki barely resembles a real human being anymore. That's why Obsession lingers after it ends. Because underneath the horror mechanics, the film is asking something genuinely disturbing. If someone loved you exactly the way you thought you wanted, would you actually survive it? Obsession isn't perfect. The packing occasionally drifts early on, and some viewers might want deeper emotional backstory from the characters. But as a psychological horror film about control, fantasy, loneliness, and modern love dynamics, this thing is incredibly effective. 8 out of 10, disturbing in exactly the right ways. But now I want to know what you think. By the end of the movie, did you feel more sorry for Bear or for Nikki? Because honestly, your answer says a lot. Drop it below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe to Movizo for more psychological horror deep dives, hidden meanings, and cinematic analysis. See you in the next one.